All right, guys, are you ready? As I apparently am not, because all of my stuff is falling everywhere. So my beet paper, my beet dyed paper is dry, and I'll show you that in a minute, but I thought first I'd show you my pile of things that I use to create the patterns on my paper. And like I said, it's a mixture of different placemats, laces, doilies, and that kind of stuff. So this was one round one. I cut it in half so that way when I'm doing my 8.5 by 11s, it fits in my small pan. And then the 11 by 17s I can put in my big pan, and I can stick them, this way, and then it covers the whole sheet of paper. So a lot of them, several of them, I have them cut in half like this. So there's that one, and it makes a pretty cool pattern. I'm just going to toss them on the floor next to me for right now. This was one big leaf. This doesn't look right. Hold on a sec. Okay. Maybe it was like that. I'm thinking I might have more of these because these look like two halves of two different ones. And then I have a little one. But that's where I get that veining one. Quit grabbing that. And then, so that one's little, and then this one's got some bigger shapes to it. And again, they're cut in half for the same reason. Small pan for my 8.5 by 11s. Big pan for my 11 by 17s. I have this. It's what I was trying to explain. It's not really fishnet. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, it's got like a little flower pattern here. But yeah, that's what creates that one that's got all the holes in it. And I think I have another one of these further down in the pile. I gotta go wash now that these are done. Put that on the chair behind me instead of on the floor. This is the rubber shelf stuff. And I know there's another one of those further down in the pile. Oh, see, and there's some more of that. So, oh, that one's folded because I've already washed that one. So lace doilies. Bought these off of Wish, so they are not antique, although they are kind of looking antique since they've been used to dye with many different mediums: coffee, tea, Jello, sugar-free Jello. That was a bad idea. I won't be doing that again. Beets, onion skin, avocado. So yeah, it's starting to get antique-y. These got to go in the wash. Here is the table runner. And again, this was white when I bought it. And when I say going in the wash, I'm not like wasting wash machine time. I just rinse them out and then hang them up to dry. So this is that privacy lace that I was talking about that I got at the bridal shop. It does have a weird, V shape. So it's a little tricky to use for this purpose. I do tend to kind of like use it and flop it over. Just because it's, there's no way to like really use it all in one single thing because of its shape. It's so funny because these were white once upon a time. These were my very first doilies that I ever bought for the purpose of dyeing paper. So this is 2 years of dyeing. And once these are rinsed out and dried, very, very, very little, if any, of this previous color transfers over to the current paper. Sometimes it does, and for me, I don't worry about that because I kind of like that look. So I'll look some more of that. Another one of these. This is like straw, kind of. I don't know what to call it. It's very stiff. You can kind of hear it. Also, one of the first things I purchased for the purpose of dyeing paper. Sometimes I like the results, other times not so much. This is the only silicone placemat that I left intact because there's really no way to cut it without destroying the structure of it. You can see that it stretches, you know, so if I cut it this way, everything will be weird. If I cut it this way, no matter which way I cut it, it's going to mess something up, and it's going to make it, I think it'll make it unusable because of how much stretch it has. So I just leave this one in the circular pattern. Plus I love this part of it anyway. Square placemats. This gives you this beautiful leaf pattern. I have a great one in my stack over there of this one. There's this one. Also one that I left whole for the same reason. Couldn't figure out where to cut it where it wouldn't ruin the aesthetic. I mean, because I wanted to keep this center piece intact. So, I mean, I could cut off to the side, but then that's really small and I end up wasting a lot. So I opted to just leave it whole. So when I do 8.5 by 11s for this, I'll usually have to like put it in the center, and then I'll have part of it hanging off the edge of the pan. So, and the silicone ones don't fold very well. So you can't like the fabric ones, I can flip them over. The doilies, I can do half and then flip it over and do pages with the other half of it. Can't really do that with these silicone mats. And then this was a big flower. What you get cut in half. This one is hit and miss. Sometimes I get really good transfer, other times not so much. And a big part of that is because of this how closed off this is. If you look at it from behind, there's spots where there's not a lot of open space. And when you're using doilies and stuff to dye paper, you really want that open space in order to get, you know, the good pattern. Now, it's been a long time since I used beet juice to color paper, because beets happens to be my bearded dragon's favorite. So it's not very often that I actually have beets to use for this project. But because it had been so long, I actually forgot one piece of that puzzle. Some coffee dyed papers in the middle of that. I just hand painted these because I did a piece of cardstock for a project I was working on, and then I had a bunch of coffee left over. So I just grabbed some scrap paper and did some quick dyeing of that. Now, if you look at this pile, you might notice what the problem that I remembered is. Okay, this is all beet juice. This was the top of the pile. This was the bottom of the pile. So the problem with beet juice is you have to use it in small portions. Otherwise, as the paper dries, you lose that pink coloring. Now, if you're not really wanting the pink all that much, it doesn't really matter. But then, why bother boiling beets if you're going to end up with paper that looks like it was coffee dyed anyway? You might as well use coffee or tea. It's cheaper. Right now, anyway. But next time, I will remember that. So this was the very top of the pile. This is some of that oxidization that I was talking about that happens when you have that top piece there to protect everything else underneath. I personally love this. Some people use this as collage because they don't like that oxidization look. I personally love it. This piece fell off the pile and landed on top of my my space heater next to me. And so it got a little hot, and I think it burned the paper a little bit. Good thing I was sitting in here. You can see, so some of these, the transfers either barely came through or not at all. You can see a little bit of that coming through. And then you get a little bit more. So there's that pattern. And then the leaf. Because this is different on each half, I would probably either fold it in half and use it for 2 different projects, or use it as a signature in a page in a journal, because then you won't see that it's 2 different patterns on the same page. This was the back side. Remember I talked about putting them back to back, so that was the back side of that one. This one also had a lot of transfer, which I'm not sure why, because I don't usually have that problem. This is the 3rd page that has the same netting, the same leaf patterns, but it also has the grid pattern that hopefully you can see in there. So it looks cool, just don't know why it did it. So there's this. The pink is starting to fade out, right, as it's working. There's that grid. These may not all be completely in order either. The other half of that. Solid gridding. Using that whole thing. The other half. I love that center. I love when it does this. Another piece of that grid, and then some bleed through of a doily. This is that one uncut silicone placemat. It's got the little leaf shapes in it. I love the way that one always comes through in impressions. It looks very textured. It looks like these are raised, but they're not. But just the way it shadows itself makes it appear that way. So I'm no longer in the pinks. I don't have any pinks left. These last 2 have a little bit of a tint of pink, but they're more brown than pink. There's those 2 black doilies. There's the other half of that round placemat. Isn't that cool? And this was on the bottom of the pan, so I'm also getting that rust coming through. So clearly I'm not in order. That wedding doily, or that wedding privacy thing. 2 black doilies. Here's that leaf placemat. I don't know why I keep forgetting what that stupid thing is called. This one's got a lot of bleed through, so it's actually got like 3 or 4 different ones on it. This one kind of did the same thing, which is interesting. So not only is there the spirals from the round one, but there's also the leaves of this one. That's kind of cool. Hopefully you guys can see and tell that. Now you flip it over, and for the most part it's just that leaf patterning. You can see a little tiny bit of that arcing round one here, just in the shadows. It's much more prominent on that side. Look how gorgeous this turned out. Isn't that beautiful? I think this is my favorite one out of this batch, to be honest. Although I do really love this one as well. Oh, these are definitely not in order anymore. Oh, this one got folded up while it was dyeing. So there's the pattern. But then when you pull the corner like it's supposed to. There's the round one. More of that table runner. This is the two round doilies. One here and one here. Oh, that was the back. Sorry. This is the front side of it. I think my whole pile's upside down. This one you can see the patterning much better than the last one, but not as clear for this one. So again, that might determine how I use that in future projects. That plastic grid, the grid and that netting. The grid again, grid and netting, and then the bottom of the pan. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. And I can usually get, if I don't use, and if I don't separate the papers, putting them straight down on the pan and stacking the papers, I can usually get 4, maybe 5 that pick up that metal before it doesn't soak through anymore. Like, you know, like this. If it was just a stack of papers, the first 4 or 5 of them will have that that rusty metal look to them. Full sheet of that netting one. And last but not least, pretty boring. Picked up a very, very faint patterning. Pretty subtle, but it's there. So there it is. This is my Beet dyed paper for what it's worth. Even though a lot of them lost their beet color. I'm okay with that. But, you know, as well as showing you my stack of what I dye with. So, hope you enjoyed this short little video. Stay tuned, keep watching. I'll keep dropping random videos, and hopefully I'll go live again soon. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share if you like my content. And take care of yourself. Peace.